Hi, welcome back to another Tech to Elevate webinar. We've been doing these on Thursdays at noon, and we'll continue doing these. So we're glad that you could join us, and we hope that you can make it back for some more of our webinars in the future. We're also glad that you're joining us potentially after the streaming of this. We have all of these webinars on our YouTube account, which you can find through our website. All of this can be found through our website, and we'll give more information about that at the end. But that's tech2elevate.org with the number 2. I'm Benjamin Gallegos. I'll be presenting today on internet best practices for searching, research, getting your news, things like that. I am an AmeriCorps member, currently serving here at Tech to Elevate in Erie, Pennsylvania. We also have members down in Beaver County, and we help people remote as well if you're not in either of those locations. And we're also certainly looking to expand to new places. Again, that's Tech to Elevate with the number 2 if you're trying to find us. We do a lot of different things for help, whether it's digital coaching, if it's some small tech help, if we're helping you design a website, looking into what's best for that, flyers, things like that. We do a lot of different things. Feel free to reach out. But today, we're going to be focusing on how you can get your news and how you can get trustworthy articles and things like that. If it's research for an academic paper, for school, something like that, or if you're just doing your own research for understanding the world better, understanding your news, things like that. Oh, sorry about that. So these are internet search best practices. And we'll go right into the top search engines. I'm sure you've probably heard of most of these. The first and foremost, Google, of course. Google is used by over 75% of people using search engines. I believe it's well over 75%. But certainly Microsoft Edge, Microsoft's newest kind of version of their search internet, kind of an updated version of Internet Explorer. Also a fine search engine, Yahoo search as well. Any of these will work. And this is basically, the search engine is, right, you go to Google, you go to Microsoft Edge, you go to Yahoo search, and that's where you can type in your question, right? You can type in how old is blank, whatever. So that's what the search engine's for. I personally recommend at least one of these 3, but again, Google is typically far and away the front runner here. So when you're going into your search, you can ask pretty generic questions. Often these search engines are pretty good at understanding the way that we ask questions to search engines. So if you ask, how old is a certain celebrity or who are they married to, it'll often get you what you want. But sometimes they're not the best at understanding exactly what you want. And that's where something like quotation marks can be really useful. So in Google and most search engines, if you put something in quotation marks, it'll make sure to have word for word, letter for letter, exactly what you put in those quotation marks. So my example here is if you're looking for a specific quote and you want to find those exact words, that would be a good time to use it. For example, the quote, who said, I think, therefore I am, I think, therefore I am, a Descartes quote. And so that way you have it exactly worded and it makes sure not to change anything. You can also use the minus or kind of the dash. If you're looking for something, again, the example is like if you're looking for an orange, you may get a lot of different results for the color, for the fruit, for different places like Orange County. You put the minus sign and it gets rid of most of the results for fruit. You may still get a couple that fall through the cracks, but typically you're going to find a lot more results for the color orange, for places named Orange County, Orange, etc., or anything relating to orange that's not specifically related to the fruit. And so that's really helpful for something like the word orange, which can have multiple different meanings. The last thing for an advanced search obviously isn't something that's, a part of everything. It's very specific to Google, but Google Scholar you can access through any search engine. You can access through Microsoft's Edge and Yahoo search and other search engines, but scholar.google.com gives you a great deal of advanced search options. You can find the year that something was published to make sure that it's published recently. And overall, the main purpose for Google Scholar, as the name implies, is to find you scholarly articles on whatever you're searching for. So these don't necessarily have to be, journal articles, but they can be books, anything like that, that was typically peer-reviewed or published by some sort of group or organization. Now, everything you find on Google Scholar isn't guaranteed to be trustworthy. You still have to go through the typical steps to make sure that your source is trustworthy, but we'll go over that later. But generally, Google Scholar's sources are a lot more likely to be peer-reviewed and checked by other authorities than just the person publishing it. So the next one is understanding search results for the domain kind of ends at the end of the domain, at the end of the URL. So .edu, .com, .gov, .org. I'm sure you've seen many of these, and so I'm just going to break down what they mean. .com is a standard website. Basically, anyone can get a .com. It doesn't mean that a .com website isn't trustworthy. It just means that it's not necessarily the most trustworthy, right? You have Facebook.com, you have YouTube.com, you have a lot of websites that end at .com that are completely safe and completely trustworthy. But again, anyone can get a .com. For instance, a .org is different. Not anyone can just get a .org. You have to be part of an organization. Now, that doesn't mean that every .org website handle is going to be 100% safe, but it means that there's a better chance that it's safe than a .com. You also have .edu and .gov. .edu typically means that it's published by a university and that it's fairly trustworthy. The important thing to keep in mind with .edu is that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't students posting their publications as well. A lot of universities publish a lot of what students write. So it's not the most trustworthy, but it is coming from a trustworthy establishment. So you have to see, is it one of the professors posting it, something like that. And with a .edu, that really is pretty much just college level institutions and universities. Not even, high schools and middle schools will have .edus. So typically, if you see a .edu, at the very least, the website itself should be trustworthy. The actual individual articles published, you have to go through and find out who's actually saying that. We also have .gov. .gov has probably the greatest likelihood of being a very trustworthy source. If it's .gov, that means that it is actually a government source. We'll go over some examples of a .gov as well in the future in this webinar. But .gov typically means that it's from the government. It's been reviewed in some way, right? There's no students or something posting like that to the government. Everyone in the government organization should be theoretically putting their best foot forward. So here are just examples of some trustworthy sites and examples of those .govs, .edus. First one we have is a .gov. It's the National Library of Medicine. The National Library of Medicine is a great resource if you're looking for scholarly articles on scientific, medical related things, right? If you're looking at something kind of related to chemistry, biology, anything like that, most of the articles in here are peer-reviewed, well-researched, and come from established research centers. Doesn't mean, again, that everything is perfect. You still want to check who the author is, research them a little bit, make sure that they seem trustworthy. But typically things in the National Library of Medicine, great place to at least start if you're looking for something medical, because you know that what they're telling you is very likely to be true, and then you can go on and base the rest of your searches off of that information. Similarly, if you're looking for legal information, whether or not you're looking for the laws or for different court cases and things like that, you can go to law.cornell.edu. This is a .edu, so it comes from a university. Obviously, it comes from the University of Cornell. The University of Cornell is a very reputable university, one of the top-ranking universities in the world, and certainly in the United States. And so the law.cornell.edu is a great resource similar to the National Library of Medicine, right? It's compiled by great minds at Cornell, and they typically try to make sure that they have the best and most trustworthy sources for their website, because they want you to trust Cornell University and they want you to trust what they're saying. So they're going to put the best information, the most true information, most accurate information they can. We also have Britannica. I think Britannica is a great website to look at as a counterpoint to Wikipedia. Britannica gives you similar articles if you look up a person, event, a song, anything like that, a holiday, right? Britannica will typically have an article on those things, but they're very short and succinct, but they're also completely able to fill in all the important details that you need, and they're very well researched and very well written to be sure that they are able to fit everything that they need to say into as few words as possible, so that they can disseminate that information to anyone easily and available, and so that their articles aren't lengthy and wordy and aren't going too much into academic terms. They're making sure that anyone is able to best understand those events, and they still give really, really high-end explanations that you can trust a lot more than Wikipedia and other similar sources. Lastly, I have the Associated Press. Everyone has their own preferred news outlet organization, and I don't want to tell you what news outlet you should go to. I just wanted to bring up the Associated Press as a good example of something more unique in news. The Associated Press is a cooperative or a co-op, and it's also an unincorporated association, so it's fairly different from the other major news networks. And the reason I bring this up is the Associated Press is typically considered one of the more trustworthy and one of the lesser biased sources. Obviously, a lot of different news sources have their biases, and the Associated Press as a whole certainly has various political biases and different things like that. But because it's unassociated, or because it's a cooperative and unincorporated, that means that there's a lot more free reign within it. And actually, you'll find that most news sources and most news outlets will actually cite the Associated Press for various different things in their own articles. And so it's a good place where you can start to look at, because you're having a lot of different people coming from different backgrounds to create the Associated Press. And it's not just one organization and what their mind and goal is. So next is trusting a source. Like I said, the Associated Press is often cited in other people's articles, and you want to make sure that someone is cited in other people's articles, right? Being a journalist, being in the news means that you're researching things and finding things out that you didn't already know. So you have to be citing that information. You have to be saying where you got that information from. And almost all major trustworthy news organizations will cite their information. Something else you can look for is typically they'll have an author, and around that, they should have a publication date, sometimes even a specific timestamp. Typically, websites that don't have that accountability of when it was published or who it was published by, right, they're trying to hide something for a reason. Another thing you can look for is grammar and spelling. Again, if this is a major news organization or a trustworthy news organization, they're going to try to gain your trust by giving the best news they can. So if they're not putting effort into spelling and grammar, it's probably not something that you should be trusting. Kind of going back to the whole citations and authors and publication dates is transparency, right? You should be able to go to their website and find out who's publishing this information, who runs the company, right? You should be able to find out ways to contact them. As I say in the last bullet point, contact info. There should be some way to hold them accountable, to reach them, to contact them. If there's nothing like that, they probably don't want to be found because they're probably not giving you the best information. So from here, we will quickly go to just do a little search, a little internet search. So we can go here. I have typed in Erie News into the search bar. So there's Erie News Now. You scroll down, there's the Erie Times News in your Erie. Let's start with the first one and see how it looks. So Erie News Now, you see a lot of different articles. They have the typical different sections up here, which is good to see that their website is developed out. And let's go to a specific article. So if we go to this article, you can see right at the start, 11:02 a.m. on Thursday, April 25th, 2024. So we know that this was published recently and that this is very up-to-date information, which is not only good to know, but it also proves that this is most likely a trustworthy source. But I don't see an author yet. So we'll scroll through. And interestingly, I don't see an author for this piece at all. Now's where you might want to go into some extra effort to see if it is still trustworthy, because sometimes things don't have just one author. Sometimes things are written at the news outlet. So other ways that we can see is we have their social media. So there are other ways to contact them, right? We can email them. Maybe that's emailing this specific article, but down here, right, there's the connect with us, different features like that. If we go to another website, goerie.com, we can see right at the start who it's written by. You can see a photo of who they are. So there's a lot of accountability here. Again, you can see ways to share this on social media, not only when it was published, but also when it was updated. Looks like it was updated at the same time, but that's useful to know to see if anything has changed. You can see very well written photos that are cited, right? Photo by AJ Rao. So they're citing where they got their information from. And you can see on this website, bottom, I believe, maybe at the top, there's staff directory, right? Sitemap, different things like that. So this is what I mean by transparency, right? Not only can you see these people, you can also email every single one of these people. So no one's trying to hide behind their screens. These are all real people that you can trust. So anyway, thank you for attending this webinar. I hope that you learned a lot. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach us at tech2elevate.org. That's down here with the number 2. We also have our phone number. Feel free to call us for different appointments. Up in Erie, we're at the Blasco Library from, I believe we're doing 2 to 6 Wednesdays and Thursdays at the Erie Blasco Library. And in Aliquippa and Ambridge, we're serving down there from 12 to 4 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I believe. Thursdays, I believe. I'm not sure exactly which locations we're serving at those times, but we do a lot of different things. If it's virtual or in person, right, we can do website help, virtual appointments, device setup, a lot of different things. Or if you have questions about whether or not a website is safe, whether or not you can trust it, whether or not the information looks good, how to find different websites or anything like that, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to answer. Anyways, glad that you could come to this webinar, and we hope you have a great day.